Chapter 2. Champion of Light. Published by Royal Road. As soon as he pierced through the vast cloud cover of planetary proportions, Tekiel opened his eyes. Apparently he was inside some kind of stream of light that carried him toward the surface of Exodus at relativistic speed. In one moment he was in the vastness of space, floating in orbit above the planet Exodus. The next moment he had already traveled hundreds of thousands of kilometers, approaching the planet below at an alarming speed. When his body broke through the cloud barrier, the momentum of the light seemed to slow just enough for him to see the world below for a brief instant, before stopping to float less than a meter above the ground. He would have screamed like a madman if he could, but his new body seemed unable to move. Fortunately, he did not collide with the ground like a meteor. It would have been an epic and at the same time ridiculous death. VRMMO Callistius, priest of the goddess of light, was kneeling in the temple when a radiance passed through his eyelids. He was ecstatic when the first signs of the descent revealed themselves. A pillar of celestial light broke through the black and stormy skies and descended directly into the temple courtyard without any prior warning. In a single overwhelming instant of brilliance, one of the goddess's champions descended from the stars before him. VRMMO remained kneeling, overtaken by the sight of a single man wearing a white overcoat who floated slowly at the center of the immense luminous pillar. Perhaps the goddess would strike him blind for daring to look upon such vast power with mortal eyes, but he needed to see. It was too magnificent to look away from. The newly arrived champion of the goddess looked just as disoriented as he was. When the light finally ceased, Tekiel found himself standing inside a temple of ancient and ceremonial appearance. The hall was built with stones as white as marble. What caught his attention the most, however, was the elderly man in priestly garments kneeling on the floor with his arms raised. Before Tekiel could ask anything, the old priest began to speak. This humble servant greets the revered child of light sent by the goddess Lumiel. Your arrival, long awaited, has finally been fulfilled. I am honored to receive you in this humble temple. Tekiel barely had time to make sense of the situation before the priest continued speaking. He watched the man closely. It was an incredibly well-made NPC. Everything felt too real. Even the gaze conveyed a sense of unique personality. He pushed aside his thoughts and finally replied, "Greetings, Sir NPC. Are you the one in charge of this starting area?" The old man looked at him strangely, clearly confused. "NPC? Forgive my ignorance, dearest envoy of the goddess of light. I do not know what an NPC is. Perhaps it is difficult for me to comprehend your superior wisdom." "Oh, forgive me, sir. It's an expression used in my home world. I suppose it is not polite to call you that after all." The priest took a deep breath and asked, still nervous, "Forgive my boldness, but may I know your name, champion of the goddess?" "Of course, why not? My name is Tekiel Tezca." "I see. You truly are one of the goddess's envoys. Even your name resembles hers. A pleasure to meet you, powerful mage Tekiel. My name is VRMMO Callistius. As you can see, I am a priest of the goddess of light. I have an urgent message for you. Straight to the point. As I said, I am but a simple priest of the goddess of light in this small temple north of the continent of Exodia. I live a calm and simple life, spending most of my days in communion and seeking celestial guidance. One day, a few weeks ago, during one of my quests for enlightenment, I received a terrible message from the goddess Lumiel. The revelation occurred right here in this temple." VRMMO took a deep breath before continuing. "The goddess Lumiel informed me that terrible forces of darkness have taken root throughout the world. Creatures are being indirectly led by Uruxorith, the god of darkness and corruption. She told me that the corruption is already firmly embedded in Exodus. The forces of the dark god must be repelled. Then Lumiel revealed that she would send an elite force to combat these forces of darkness." He raised his eyes to Tekiel. Her envoys, her elite warriors, the champions of light would descend from the stars. They would fall upon Exodus to punish the forces of darkness. I am extremely happy and relieved that the time of the descent of you champions of light has finally begun. I will not waste any more of your time. My mission is to instruct any newcomer to the Temple of Light." "I understand," murmured Tekiel, staring at the old priest while scratching his chin. It was clearly one of the classic clichés of players sent to fight evil. Useless gods and their battles for dominion. That was old news since the earliest MMOs. I suppose I am not the only one to receive this divine message, Tekiel questioned. I am certain you are not, champion of the goddess. Priests in other temples throughout the continent of Exodia likely received the same guidance. I understand your message perfectly, Priest Zuramam Calistius. Tekiel immediately began to act. He needed to develop as fast as possible. The more time he wasted, the fewer advantages he would have. It wasn't time to be chatting with this old man. What guidance did the goddess Lumiel leave? Tekiel asked directly. He had no time for frivolous dialogue. Better to skip the boring part quickly. Zuramam answered without hesitation. Based on the information I received from the goddess in your garments, I assume that you, Lord Tekiel, are a powerful mage. I see, revered mage Tekiel. The priest walked to a corner of the courtyard and retrieved a strange black-covered book. He extended the volume, offering it to Tekiel. I received several of these books. Each one is destined to a specific class. This one is reserved for mages. Tekiel took the strange book from the priest's wrinkled hands, feeling its unusual weight. Revered mage Tekiel, if you allow me, I will leave you alone so that you may study the pages without distractions. All right, thank you, but just call me Tekiel. All that formality was starting to annoy him. It was amusing the first few times, but over time it became exhausting. As you wish, Lord Tekiel. The old priest bowed and exited through one of the courtyard passages. As soon as the priest left the courtyard, Tekiel sat on the ground and began flipping through the strange book. Upon identifying the item, an information window appeared. On the inner cover of the book, Tekiel calmly traced the letters. He needed to absorb as much information as possible. A name was written, Mordenkainen. Apparently he was the author of the book in his hands. There was a vague story saying that Mordenkainen had been the creator of the current arcane system. The man who made magic possible in the world of Exodus. The legendary arcane mage Mordenkainen had ascended to power through sheer genius. Before dying, he shared his knowledge to carry the arcane arts forward. Tekiel didn't think much about the story of the legendary old mage before moving on. On the first page there was a circle with several marked points and a great amount of detailed and meticulous information. The marked points in the large circle were called nodes. These nodes were the programming language created and used by Mordenkainen to craft powerful arcane abilities. According to the description, the nodes adjusted everything: power, size, speed, direction, additional effects, and finally the energy cost. According to the book, to activate an ability it was necessary to mentally form an arcane circle visible only to the mage. This circle possessed a central node that connected to several others, and the correct sequence of these nodes determined the final effect. It would certainly require time, study, and practice. This was the true essence of the arcane arts. What most caught Tekiel's attention were the nodes used to construct and shape the abilities. The first node, larger and central, served as the core of the ability. Tekiel sighed, rubbing his temples. Thinking wouldn't make him better. It was time to train. Tekiel sat on the ground and closed his eyes before beginning to follow the book's instructions to create the lesser fireball. To begin, he imagined a circle in his mind. This circle was entirely made of arcane energy. At the corner of his vision Tekiel noticed a blue energy bar with the number 1000. That was his arcane energy. The formation of the mental circle was simple. His energy bar barely moved. Apparently the cost to create the circle was relatively low. The problem came when trying to connect the nodes that followed. As soon as he began implementing the nodes, Tekiel realized the intrinsic difficulty of his situation. Maintaining concentration while guiding energy through each node was absurdly exhausting. Any slip caused the entire structure to lose stability like a building with weak foundations. It took only one mistake. A single second of carelessness for Tekiel to discover what his life would be like from now on. He barely had time to scream before his body exploded in a ball of fire that hurled pieces of him across the room. The bloody scene would have made any observer vomit in disgust. There were guts everywhere. Zuramam Calistius froze wide-eyed as blood and flesh from the goddess's champion rained down in the courtyard.